Plot: Freaks, 1932. Written by Charmerty Smith. Beautiful trapeze artist Cleopatra sets her sight on Hans, another circus performer. However, she doesn't love him, she's only interested in his inheritance and plans with her lover Hercules to kill Hans for it. But unknown to Cleopatra and Hercules, the other circus performers find out about their plans and are prepared to do whatever it takes to protect their friend. Voiceover off.
When you're blind and watching movies, what will you find? A blind superhero whose superpowers are acting like he's not blind. A sighted actor over dramatically touching people's faces. And maybe the whole joke is that they're bumping into different places. A spectacular, macular generation. Tunnel vision to your television. And do they off this movie with audio descriptions? They're movie buffs who know their stuff. You'll be thoroughly entertained. Join Sky and Melissa throughout film history and Citizen White Cane.
Hello.
Hi there.
And welcome to Citizen White Cane, the podcast where all the disabled freaks and all the film geeks are Google Gobble one of us. My name is Sky McLeod.
I'm Melissa Bukta.
We're talking about freaks today.
Yes.
Getting freaky.
Getting freaky on the podcast. Love it.
This is a 1932 film that's pretty culturally relevant.
Yeah, well,
that's not the right word, but yeah.
Pretty infamous. I get might
Yeah.
be a better word.
Infamous at the time, and I guess is more of kind of like a cult classic
Yes,
now.
I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even in my film classes and a little bit of my American study of the American cinema, Freaks is brought up, but not really talked about all that much.
Is it like, when is it brought up? Is it brought up? In
Well,
what
when
context?
you're talking about the silent, the late silent, early talkie era, but it's
Right.
more brought up for the nature in its horrificness and its use of sideshow performers, and the fact that this movie basically destroyed almost everybody's career that was involved in it.
Yeah, it's weird because a lot of the reviews at the time were talking about how horrible it is and like how, disgusting or whatever. Like, and I was just like, it's just, I don't understand. Like, I truly do not understand. It felt very much like, is it because of the actor? It's I don't know. It really bothered me just how much they're like, it's grotesque.
This movie, this movie is interesting because I think it presents two sides of the coin. It gives audiences what they think they're going to get, and not necessarily what they want. But it's also, the whole first half of the movie is really trying to portray how incredibly human all of these people are.
Right. Yeah, and it is kind of just the beginning of the movie. You really want it to just be more of the beginning of the movie because you're kind of just seeing a community. Like, I'd want to watch a TV show that's kind of like a 30-minute TV show just of these characters.
I really enjoyed that. I mean, as much as I'm not gonna lie, I did this has definitely been on my bucket list of movies, and I did come into this with a very sensational attitude. I'm gonna watch this crazy movie, but I got a lot more than I thought I was going to get. And the stuff that I really enjoyed was all that stuff at the beginning. Just spending time as a fly on the wall with these performers and seeing this little community of people and what the hierarchy is and how things work and who hangs out with whom and what the gossip is.
Right, because there's kind of because we have the movies about all these, all the characters are part of a traveling sideshow circus, but because there's kind of there's the more circusy, acrobatic, abled people on one end, sort of, you kind of see the difference between them and the disabled and intersex,
Sideshow performers.
So there's kind of the with the right word, there's a delineation of oppressed and oppressor that's in the movie, so it kind of I think it doesn't it doesn't like paint the abled people as being the empathetic ones either, which
No, I mean, I would argue that Venus might be our only abled empathetic person, because at least she treats, Frida and the other sideshow performers like people. I mean, Frida and Venus have loads of conversations, and it's just usually it's about Hans or a man. So no, this movie does not pass the Bechdel test.
Oh yeah, no,
but
no.
but they are normal conversations, and it seems like Venus likes and gets along with everybody in the circus.
Yeah, it's mostly that we have our like Cleopatra, our main villain, basically, who is marrying Hans, who is a little person, and like for his inheritance, and it's she and her boyfriend guy
Hercules, who is the
like
strong man.
Right. See Hans as a joke and like, someone to be ridiculed, and she's just marrying him because he has money and
right, someone who they can easily win over and manipulate and then kill.
Yes, which is like especially sinister. Which and you kind of like have different characters at times, like at the beginning we have like there's like park rangers or something that are like that stumble upon one of the families where the kids all have microcephaly.
Right. Oh, okay, thank you, because I was trying to look up what their particular disability was, and I couldn't find it, mostly because I can't internet correctly. But so I've seen a character like that on Pepper is her name in the Pepper and Salty sorry, let me back up here. I'm comparing this to season 4 of American Horror Story.
Well, it's based off this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because I saw like, oh my gosh, like whole swaths of episodes were taken directly from the plot of this movie.
Right.
All of these things happen.
You're gonna bring that, like I brought the Joker during The Man Who Laughs. You'll
Exactly.
Bring
American Horror Story. Yeah. The season of that. It's season 4 Freak Show. If you want to find it, look up anything
more
about that.
Like Freak Show media?
Well, I think. Okay, so I think. Oh man, this is a really hard question to answer, because I want to say like I think it's because we respect them more as human beings, and it's not just let's gawk at all of these sideshow performers.
But what we have now is almost worse, because it's like let's just ignore them and not really register that they're human most of the time.
I mean, the thing you got to think about is, yes, it absolutely what happened in circuses in this time was cruel, and what happened to these people was cruel, but for these people, a lot of them, this is how they got work. This is a lot of them.
I mean, I don't think it was cruel, really. I think that, I don't know. I mean, I think the people. Yeah,
I think the able people, the onlookers, were cruel. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a time machine. I know little to nothing about the circus community, past or present. But I mean, you did have people who work for the circus, like Barnum, who absolutely exploited the folks that he had with him.
Yeah, but a lot of them did actually get, and we talked about this a little bit for The Man Who Laughs, but did make a living, and a lot of the people in this movie were longtime performers that were making money through doing that, and
most of them when the movie ended just went back to being sideshow performers.
Right, which I mean, I don't know. I do think that it is just though there is the way it's perceived by abled people is super problematic in some ways, but I also think that I don't know. I don't see it as being as harmful overall, just because I don't think that disabled people have a lot of options now. So I think if in the future, when we have as many options as, possible, and, and like we can actually work at any job we want, then I think that you can say sideshows are offensive. But until we're there, I don't think you can. I guess it's just like, people who don't get work, like a lot of disabled people are still unemployed. Like, that is still extremely common in the disabled community.
I guess
so.
I'm coming at that angle with my own baggage and bias, because I all throughout elementary school and middle school and high school, I was gawked at and teased and looked at, as the weird person, as the person
Right.
with a cane, as the disabled person.
But you were isolated though, because I know a lot of times for me it's felt like which is another reason why I don't think there's bad, because it's a community of people that are supportive.
True.
And it's kind of like, I think that adds on to the fact that because humans are so sensitive to being ostracized. But if you're in a community of people and then it becomes more us versus them, but they're still an us. You're being ostracized as a group, and that's not as psychologically terrifying as like being ostracized as an individual. And so I think that like when I've been in abled spaces where I'm the only disabled person, I think that is and being gawked at, that's so much more psychologically damaging than if I was with a group of people who were like my family and who I had a very, close relationships with, and we were a community of people, and then there's just everyone else who's kind of assholes. I mean, like, that feels very doable in the long term to me, like,
Yeah, well, and I guess that's why I was like I said, I was really scared to watch this, because I was convinced the director, Todd Browning, made this film as just to be exploitative. And of course, at the end, all the freaks come out and it's gross and they attack this person. And although that was, it was lit, that scene was, I thought that sequence was done very well. I mean, the camera angles are wonky and off kilter, and it's really unsettling. And all of the actors are coming out from like these places in half shadow and in the darkness, and they look unsettling. Yes, it's unsettling, but I didn't see it as exploitative as I thought it was going to be, because you get the first half of the movie, and they're not just killing
most of the movie. Yeah.
And they're not just killing these people to kill these people because they're monsters. They're protecting their own.
The able people are monsters.
Oh yeah, okay, sorry. The able people are monsters, but these disabled people are not just killing. They're not just killing the able-bodied people because they're monsters, and
the disabled people are monsters. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I think, and it's hard because at the very end, when we do have those, it does feel like it gives into a problematic stereotype, or I mean, stereotype's not even the right word, but like, fear, in the same way that like, Trump talks about, undocumented people, like it's a level of just like completely so far removed from like reality of like disabled people are out to get you, and there's something very sinister, and that they, will kind of team up and kill you in like a horror movie, like, like that, even if the movie has painted the antagonists as being, very reprehensible people, and so like you don't feel bad for them getting killed, it's still like to see a bunch of disabled people in a way that doesn't feel as triumphant, that's painted as kind of like a horror movie where you feel like you're maybe supposed to be empathizing more with the like with the abled antagonist than you are with the disabled people in some ways. Like, I don't know. I mean, theoretically, you shouldn't be empathizing with the abled people in that last scene, right?
Right. No. I mean, Cleopatra's going to kill Hans.
Right.
That's what she's going to do. The strong man is a brute and a bastard, and he's going along with her plan.
Right. They're bad. They're bad people. They spend the entire movie, ridiculing, like, the disabled people that they live among, and dehumanizing them. And
that's why Hans's speech to Frida about how he just wants to be treated like a man. Everyone sees him as this child, as this baby, but he has the same grown-up wants and feelings, as a man. Yeah.
I think disabled people, that's kind of a true form of discrimination, of like infantilization of disabled people. And also I think for little people it's especially hard, because that is like you get the even worse infantilization. And yeah, it is. It's interesting because a lot of the movie does kind of address ableism, but then at the same time, sometimes just like addressing the reality of ableism doesn't feel like and granted, this is what I would say to movies in the 21st century, like it doesn't feel like enough just to like show ableism. You want something that feels more progressive than that, and granted this was 1932, so I mean the world was obviously not ready for it at all, given the reactions at the time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean this film was for the longest time banned in the UK.
Yeah,
I think not just recently. I think it's been at least years.
I think it was like the 60s or 70s.
Yeah, but the 60s and 70s that it was finally unbanned.
Fucking Hays Code. We haven't watched a single, like, if it's just in the US, but like we haven't watched a single movie during the Hays Code. We've only watched like pre-code and after Hays Code movies.
Yeah. We gotta watch a Hays Code movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe blind people didn't get to be in movies at that time.
30 minutes of this film are missing. Are just lost to time. Yeah, we'll never get it back.
And they added on things from the original release because they cut it because everyone was like, it's so grotesque, which it's like we don't see the rest of, but I think some of the stuff they cut was like them just living their lives scenes, though they do have a decent amount of that in the movie as well. But like it is like, I just was like, what is grotesque about, like, it just, I don't know. It really, those reviews were just really horrifying to me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They say it's so grotesque, and I'm like, are you just commenting on the fact that yes, there are people in this film. There is they called him the limbless man, which is just, he has no arms and legs.
Yeah.
There's another gentleman who has no legs, no bottom half, basically. He's
which is like, what? I mean, I don't know. There's something so celebratory to me about that. Like, it just, like, and it's so cool to see a community of, like, genderqueer and, like, disabled and, like, super, like, people with very visually specific
They call him the half man, half woman.
There's a few different, like, intersex people, I think, or at least because we also have a bearded lady.
A bearded lady.
But yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, it like brings me joy. Like I love watching that because I don't know, it's just like, seems like a very, if the real life version of that feels like a fun community to be part of. Like it's just, I don't know, it's just like the kind of people I would want to be around.
Nobody is coddled or anything. Everyone is just there and treated. Everyone is equal. No one is better. I'm not better than you because I have two working legs. And
there's like the diversity too. Like it's just, I mean, maybe this is coming from like a disabled genderqueer perspective of like, and generally being the one person in a room who has that, I feel like very alienated. But the idea of like a community of people that are, have a lot of life experiences similar to mine, but also like have different ones, and seeing kind of like being able to contextualize my own identities on like their and how they adapt and like the skills that they have through disability. I mean, it just seems like such a fun community to be part of. Like it's just, I don't know, it just like truly makes me happy.
It was all the little moments that the film captured, seeing the gentleman who doesn't have any legs, seeing how agile he is, and he can just skitter upstairs and hold a conversation and make jokes or whatever. And it's seeing the gentleman who has no limbs light a cigarette
so cool
by himself. And I'm not trying to be like, oh my god, he's so brave, oh my god, blah, blah, blah. But just
so brave for lighting a cigarette.
He lit his own cigarette, but he just does it.
But it's just like, it is fun because like sometimes you just put in a lot of like work, and you feel like you have to put in so much work to accommodate yourself, and it has to be invisible because the more people see it, I mean, especially in a capitalist society, the more people see that you have to do extra work, then it becomes like, oh well, I think when time is money, it makes you feel like, oh well, people don't want to like like I am a problem in a capitalist society if it takes me longer to do things and it's harder to do things, and so you have to hide that. And I think to just watch people who, I think, because that's what's also cool, is like they have less ability to hide the way that they're doing different things, because a lot of them have very visually specific like disabilities where you can't, like, there's less you can do to, like, internalize the accommodations. And so I think that, like, getting to watch that and be in that community would just, like, it truly is, like, so nice. Like, I just love this idea. Like,
it was. I mean, especially even at the wedding scene, which is really interesting because you're getting the scene from two very different perspectives,
right?
But you see that, you know, the community with the toast and the loving cup, and also that cracked me up because I've always been one of those people who's like, one of us,
me too.
Gooba gobble, gooba gobble, and I'm like, where does that come from? I can't tell you where it comes from.
Yeah.
It comes from this movie.
I didn't even know it came from a movie. I just thought it was a thing people did.
He started the chant, and I was like, oh my god, I've been doing that for years. I've been doing it forever.
Me too. It was very bizarre. Yeah,
it's wonderful. It's so good, and then of course the whole scene goes sour. Also, the balls on Cleopatra to just flat out poison him in front of everyone at the wedding
is
damn.
Yeah, no, it is like the hubris. I feel like, I don't know, her character is just so awful. Part of me was just like, I don't want her to be part of the movie.
No, I mean, it's 1932. It's very black and white. The villains are evil.
Well, it's literally black and white.
It is
but
literally.
Yeah.
And the good guys are very good.
Yeah, except for to them that was very morally gray because the good guys are the people who are hideous to them.
Who are these disabled people, yeah.
Yeah, so it is kind of like, which is why it didn't do very well, because it was not black and white enough, like, for people. And I mean, I do think that, like, even now, I think there is more of, like, because it's interesting, I was reading the ways that the ideas about the movie have changed over time, obviously, like, drastically from when it first came out. You know, people hated it so much and thought it was like a horror film before anyone hurts anyone, like, just because human beings are in it, so it must be a horror, like.
Well, what is the most horrifying thing? The human body,
right,
in some respects.
But, like, I mean, but that's so that's kind of at the initial release, and then when you get into the 60s and during the counterculture, it was like kind of it was re-embraced as more of a cult classic, and kind of it was recontextualized to be more, kind of, I guess, the way that it is, the text is presented, like the sideshow freaks are the ones who are the, morally sound ones for the most part. I mean, obviously killing people or mutilating them as they do is not a good thing, but I saw one person was like, it is the most what did they say, like the most kind or empathetic movie ever made, or something. But it's not the right word, but I was just like, I don't.
That sounds so condescending.
Exactly.
Though.
Yes, it is so condescending, which is why I'm hoping there's going to be a third wave of this, which would be like this. Yes, this movie, like, humanizes people who should have been human from the beginning. We shouldn't need a movie to do that. It's not like, that's not a special thing that you humanize humans. But, like, I think also I'm hoping that there's gonna be more critique of the end of it as well as time goes on, because I think that really, like, you could just have like a fun movie. I still think it would be a really fun TV show to just watch, like, like a sitcom where you just watch these people doing stuff.
And it kind of was. It's pretty much what Freak Show was. I mean, Cleopatra's character is turned into Ilsa's character, very in Freak Show. So she is the Jessica Lange character in Freak Show, basically, and they kind of sort of just up her badness 1,000%. But she is also presented a little bit differently than Cleopatra, as she is the kindly kindly older lady who is collecting these folks and putting them in her circus. I mean, the show even has a pair of conjoined twins,
right?
Which is also, this movie does too. And their whole marriage plot about them getting married and the husband not liking one of the twins, that's Freak Show ripped all of that out.
Oh, yeah.
Just took the entire plot and was like, this is, ta-da, this is it. Now, granted, the two people who are fighting over the twins, one is actually a really nice guy and the other one is a complete serial killer and is nuts. But that whole plot is basically just stolen.
But that's not a sitcom though. I want a sitcom.
No.
I want like the light. I mean, like, because you don't need any. Why does it? No. Other than I have been watching a lot of TV, and it turns out that at this point in history, all television shows involve people accidentally murdering someone, and then trying to like cover it up.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, I don't think you need. There just really does not need to be like a murder sinister.
No,
like it just truly does not need to be there.
No, absolutely not. And Freak Show, American Horror Story in general, is pulpy. I mean, it is that kind of like over the top, crazy pulp horror.
Right. As opposed to like just a community of people that like, you know, have relationships. It just seems like you really don't need to dial up anything. Like it's just fun to kind of watch people who are like, you know, like a diversity of like what they look like. I don't know. I mean, like just like an actual it's hard to like fully explain. I think because we don't have very good words about like disability is when it comes to representation and different kinds of representation of like disabled bodies. It's not like, I don't know. I wish we had more of this. It's very sad that this is like.
It's hard because I mean, it's hard in society because your body as a disabled person, as someone who has a very physical disability, you are marked whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Well, and we just really we care or not we, but like people I think just care too much about people having different bodies than them, which again is just like it's still baffling to me. I can't understand, like I truly, this is not like me doing a bit or anything. I like truly do not understand why someone who looks different like has a body that's different from yours and has a different shape, like why that's disgusting. Like I like this is just like, because it does make me very happy. Like I have such a fun because I don't know, I mean like maybe I just see, I mean, I do see myself in that. I think is probably part of that. But, like, I don't know. It just feels like that's the cool kids, you know? It's like the people you want to be hanging out with. And I just truly do not understand.
I wish I had an answer for you, or an answer for your question. I don't. I mean, the only thing I can say is, well, it's, you know, it's all about Western style of beauty.
Right.
This is something, unfortunately, this is something that has been kind of ingrained in our culture since the ancient Greeks. Yeah.
I mean, it is a very, like, I do think it's also, like, a very capitalist ideal, which I think it's interesting because every time we talk about, like, sideshows and stuff, I make a capitalist argument that, like, they had independence. But, I mean, I think within a capitalist society, having financial independence is something that has broader effects, you know? So I guess that's why I'm always making the capitalist argument of like, well, they got enough money. Because, you know, usually I don't think that's super compelling because I think over time, like, disabled people are always going to be oppressed by the capitalist society but I think it's partly because the work that we do is never valued as much, and the way that the system is set up, our work, you know, like the fact that things take us longer, and how that, you know, if you're getting paid hourly, then that means that you're not worth, you know, having around. And then I think that dynamic definitely makes me, it's why I hate capitalism overall. But I think the fact that in these sideshows, even within the capitalist society, you had something where it was an asset, like your disability is an asset as opposed to being seen as like a burden.
Right. And maybe that's why so many folks did flock to that type of environment, because you're seen as someone who can contribute. Your what society has told you are your flaws are actually what's going to get you, you know, make you soar in this type of community.
Right. And like it's kind of like a fuck you to the establishment in a way. But yeah, I mean, I do. I also wonder, like, if all disabled people if there wasn't like such extreme discrimination in work, like if most disabled people had just as much access to work as their abled counterparts, I wonder how I would feel about like sideshows, if that would make them seem more exploitative, because they are like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, because that's not the world that we live in. Like, disabled people, it's very hard for us to get jobs. So like, it's, yeah.
Well, I guess sideshows I just don't trust them very much, because it isn't about, what these folks say, or, what their opinions are, or what's inside their heads. It's about, oh, look, he has no legs and she's a conjoined twin, and he's a gender, he's a gender queer person. It's just, look at these people. Look at how odd they are.
Right.
I just hate that. It doesn't sit right with me, and I don't think it will ever sit right with me. I'm not saying that these people don't have a beautiful community, because they absolutely do.
Right.
And that shouldn't be taken away.
Do you feel like you always want to blend in certain circumstances?
Yeah, in certain circumstances, there are definitely, it's less so now, because I'm really working hard on trying to love myself and accept myself, no matter what I look like. But I definitely think, way back when, especially before I got the cane, it was about wanting to do what everybody else does, and about just wanting to be treated the same and not always treated differently. Right.
Yeah, I think that, like, I always wanted to be treated differently, and I think this has come up probably on the podcast a decent amount, just because of like our different backgrounds, and like when we were diagnosed, and how much I had to live without being diagnosed, and like how much you had to deal with people fucking with you because you're blind. And so like I think that's part, like, kind of maybe the source of why we have two different views on this from our own life experiences. But like, yeah, I mean, I think that for me, I just wanted people to acknowledge who I was, and for that to be seen as different, and for that to be seen as not a bad thing, like, and like truly for people to acknowledge it, like that. The idea of someone acknowledging it was like what I needed for a decade and was deprived of. So like, I think there also is like, the more out people can be like that, I think the more aspirational it becomes to me. Like, and we do kind of have weirdly invisible, visible disabilities. Like, I think most blind people at times in their life have made it invisible, and at times have made it visible. We have a weird way of like not really being one or the other, and so I think that puts us in a weird position of like not. Like, because I think if you do have a truly invisible disability or a truly visible disability, you're going to have very specific life experiences where it's almost like the transient nature of our invisible or visible disability. It just makes it more complicated on how much you really are trying to, because sometimes you feel like you have to compensate for like being treated differently because you're different, but then other times you feel like you have to compensate for the fact that people are expecting something of you that you can't do, and they're not acknowledging that that's not something you can do. So you feel like you have to assimilate, and you don't have a choice in certain circumstances, and then in other circumstances you feel like you're being ostracized for who you are. So I think that like that, I don't know, it makes it weird. But I think for me, I definitely lean on the like, I'm a blind person, like, and also like I think the gender fluidity thing too, like I see myself on both ends of it because of that. So I think like I just really relate to the kind of outward expression of those identities. But yeah, I don't know, yeah.
I mean, it's and I'm looking at it a little bit differently, because I was the only one of me in my school, in almost any school I've ever gone to, except for high school. There were a couple of other of us, and we did have our little community there, which was nice, but it was just me. And people couldn't see, all they saw was my disability and the fact that I'm different. And when I was a little kid, that was really hard. Nobody wanted to be friends with me, with just me.
Right.
It was always about, oh my God. I had so many kids running up to me and they always wanted to know how many fingers I was holding or they were holding up.
I hated that.
Oh, that was a huge thing all of the time. Finally, I just said, stop giving me an eye test.
Well, do you know
I don't
what?
need an eye test.
No, I have the solution to this. I figured it out.
Yes.
What you do, and this is a visual gag, so I will describe it for audio, and the fact that you're also blind is you stick out your middle finger and you say, how many fingers am I holding?
Yes.
up?
I have done that a couple of times to people. It is so
It
satisfying.
is the solution. I love when there's one. That's what I love about the finger thing. It's like there's an answer to
It
this.
shuts them. Oh my God! It
There's
shuts
a
them
correct
down.
answer that we can do.
It shuts them down so fast.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
fantastic.
And it's very funny to me. It's like Broad City has a similar one where like a guy yells at them to smile and they like use their middle fingers to like put their lips up in a smile.
Oh my God,
So
that's
it's like,
fabulous.
I just love those.
I love it. That's fantastic.
But yeah, that's yeah, no, I mean, I definitely had that, because I was diagnosed when I was 15, so it's like the second half of high school, and by that point, I had just had to adapt so severely that I was just like, oh, so people are going to fuck with me if I'm outwardly blind? I guess I just don't have to be outwardly blind, because I've already done a decade of this, And so I just, like, which, I mean, retrospect really sucked, because I did have, like, times where I just didn't get accommodations because I was like, I can't do this, like, because I see the way people treat me the more outward I am. And I think at the time I rationalized it as like, well, it's too little too late. But I think that might have been like I think in retrospect that was maybe more of a reaction to the abuse that I was getting from other people my age. And I think that it maybe had less to do with the too little too late thing and more to do with like I just knew I was going to get more abuse if I the more outwardly I was. And so I mean there's a real reason why the second I got out of college I got a cane. Like it's not a coincidence.
Getting a cane was both a blessing and somewhat of a curse. I don't see it as a curse now. Not at all. It is a tool. It is It is an extension of myself at this point.
Yeah.
I can't go anywhere without it. Literally can't go anywhere without it. But in school, it did help me get around better.
But it's like...
I'm marked again.
Yeah.
I am a target now.
Which it's like that part is so... There's no fucking reason for that. Like, it's just, there's truly no reason. There's no reason for, like, because like, at this point in my life, at 27, like, I am very proudly a blind person, and I do feel very confident in that, and, if people are going to judge me for that, I'm like, well, you're a dumbass, sorry, but, like, you suck.
I don't need to be around you.
Yeah. Where... Like, that's only served me well. I've never run into literal problems in the real world behaving this way, like, other than occasionally people, but, like, the more I get to choose the people I'm around, the more I just do not put up with anyone who's gonna fuck with me. And so it's so weird that throughout all of, like, my schooling when I was diagnosed, like, the more, if I did anything to seem blind, like, I would get abuse for it. And it's just like there's no reason for this. Like there's like literally no reason for this to be happening. Like, and I think that if we just I mean, I don't know, is it representation? Like why? Like again, I don't understand why people find disabled people abhorrent or whatever, but
I think representation is a really good argument. I think if disabled people were able to see ourselves more in mainstream media, then I don't think we'd be as ostracized sometimes as we are.
Yeah, I mean, and like, I think we have, like, the fact that we just haven't had other, like, we haven't had a sitcom with the same characters as in Freaks. Like, I think that is a big problem because I like watching this. I was like, I've never gotten to see a movie like with like actual actors that like have any, like, it's just so, this is so missing from all the media there is today, and we have so much media today.
Well, and there's quote unquote photogenic disabilities,
right?
That the people are still quote unquote normal. Like a lot of times whenever they're like, okay, put a disabled character in there, you're almost always going to see someone in a wheelchair.
Right, and in half the time more than half the time, it is an abled actor sitting down in a wheelchair.
Yes, exactly. But a person with using a wheelchair, they are what is considered, they're normal. That's a
right.
disability.
People can imagine sitting in a chair, so they're like, it's the same thing.
It's easy. It's so easy for people to, it's easy for people to swallow. It's easy for people to deal with. Now, I am not saying that wheelchair using actors are less than or shouldn't get work or don't, are not good at their jobs or anything. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying it. If a disability is needed, it's more than likely going to be someone in a wheelchair.
Right. Well, because it's also like, it's like more visual, and it's also usually someone in a wheelchair with the, even if it is a disabled actor, it's still someone where you would have to like look up to know that they're disabled, like, because it's not someone in a wheelchair that has more physical disabilities than just not having like as much mobility with their, like, you don't see someone who actually very visually seems disabled, or that's not the right word, but like just the wheelchair is the only thing that would give them away as having a disability at all,
right? And
whereas a lot of wheelchair users have other things like that is going to make it visually, so you're like, oh, it's not an abled actor, like, or at least it's very offensive if it's an abled actor. But I think that you have something, and then it's funny because like blind actors or deaf actors, it's like, well, you don't need to, because they don't you just give them a cane and then there you go, they're blind. So it's like you don't need to have a perceptual disabled actor. But I think that that's the thing, is it's like you have to get parts that abled actors can easily play, because then you don't have to like worry about actually casting a disabled person.
Well, and that is the plus and the minus of Freak Show. I mean, I was super excited to watch Freak Show because Ryan Murphy cast almost all of the sideshow characters. They were actual disabled folks and actual actors with disabilities. And that was exciting. Oh my gosh, here's a show that's focusing on these characters. And yeah, they were the bulk of the show. But you also have 2 or 3 of the main actors, because it's an ensemble series. So, or it's an anthology series. So the same cast plays different characters in each season, which I think is really cool and different and unique. But you had these main characters who needed to play these actors who needed to play main characters, but their characters also had to be disabled.
Right.
So you also have people who are able-bodied who are playing disabled, that it's like, oh, this is you were doing so good. You were doing so good. And then of course at the major spoiler alert, but at the end of the series, they have the whole showdown in the rain, a la Freaks. Yeah. And a lot of the disabled characters die.
Ugh. Wait, the
in
disabled
very gruesome
characters
ways.
Die?
Mm-hmm. It's American Horror Story. Everybody dies.
We need a Freaks. We need a sitcom that's like Freaks and maybe less geeks this time. Just like, but we need something that's not a horror movie or not a horror show, or story. Like, because I don't know. It's just like, it's such a bummer, and it's like so infuriating that they're like that it has to be within this horror genre when it's like literally this is just human.
Well, and it made me so mad because he was so close. I'm gonna cast all disabled folks, but except for the leads,
right,
who are also disabled,
also
but who are going to be played by able-bodied actors.
I still think, though, if we need American Horror Story to be the one doing this, I think that's still a problem. Like, that feels wrong to me.
Well, because American Horror Story is also sensational. It is right. It is pulp horror. It's going to sensationalize this thing.
It's horror, and like just people with like visible disabilities are not like horror. Like it's not, like a conflating
monsters.
That. Yeah. It's like so toxic.
The people in this movie aren't monsters. Yeah. Even though at the end of the movie they are portrayed as such, but they're committing these acts because they are defending one of their own.
Yeah. Well, and there's like someone actively trying to kill like it's people attacking a murderer basically, which, very common plot now in television apparently, but like it's not great. I mean, killing people is not good in general. But and I do get bummed out at the idea that just more people have to die. I don't know. I like to reduce the amount of people who have to die, so whatever.
Yeah, of course.
But like
Yeah.
I think that like make the need to make it any sort of like horror, or like the need to make people villain. I mean, I get annoyed with this with abled stories as well, because I'm like, no, this doesn't happen that often that people are killing each other. It's not
Right, you
that
don't need
common.
to villainize everybody.
Yeah. But especially when it's like the only times we're seeing these actors like in anything is like in these horror films. I mean, it feels so bad to me. Like it just feels really toxic, kind of. And I mean, I don't know. And am I coming down too hard on this in that way? I just like.
No, I don't think you're coming down too hard. I think you're thinking critically.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thanks.
you're welcome. Well, okay, it's. I should have this tattooed on my forehead because it brings it all of this always brings me back to like the one Anita Sarkeesian quote, which is, you can enjoy the things that you love, but you should think critically about them.
Yes.
I enjoy American Horror Story.
Yeah.
Even though I watch a lot of it through my fingertips and it grosses me out, I still really enjoy it. I think it's incredibly problematic. The Freak Show season in particular, but there are a bunch of things in each season that I'm like, I don't like that. I would do this differently. I don't think that particular thing was necessary.
Right.
But God damn it, I can't help it. It's October and I enjoy it.
I was gonna say you're more of a horror connoisseur. I think than I am.
I didn't used to be. Oh no, amongst my friends, I am like the least horror connoisseur.
Compared to me, so.
Yeah. No, I don't know what happened. It was so weird. This switch just flipped inside my head in like college, and I just wanted to watch scary movies.
Wow, that's like the opposite of a lot of people, I feel like, because a lot of times you're like, when you're a kid and your brain is like not as like when you're a little bit more focused on yourself, you're like, I love horror movies, and then like serial killers, and then as you get older you're like, oh, but they're people, oh no, and then it makes you more upset.
I am very picky about the horror movies that I watch. I don't want to watch torture porn. I don't want to watch a gore fest. If a movie that I'm watching has gore in it, that's fine. But I do want my horror movies to say something.
Right.
That is kind of the cool thing about horror, is you can use horror to say so many different things and to comment on so many different aspects of society.
Right. They're supposed to be, I think, political commentary in a lot of ways, and if it's not, then what's the point, right?
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, granted, I'll have a bad day, or I will just want. It doesn't happen very often, but sometimes I just want to watch violence. I just want to watch somebody blow somebody's head off.
Like, if you feel, is it like when you're feeling oppressed by the world, it can be nice to watch that?
Usually I've had a real shit day.
Yeah.
Or I've had a situation that I just don't want to deal with anymore and just has been bugging me.
That makes sense.
I just want to watch a zombie movie, or I want to watch, I don't know. I was about to say Children of Men, but I was like, I definitely don't take joy in watching Children. I love Children of Men, but I can only watch that like once every couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would probably throw on like a zombie movie or like a monster movie or something. Like a werewolf movie, or something like that. Or one of the old black and white ones.
Well, okay, so why zombie movies I think are fun is because there is a kind of disabledness of it, of like people in a society that's broken down where the systems don't work for you anymore, and so then all the characters become disabled, if they are or aren't, because like basically disabled people just live in a universe where like the world has broken down and you don't get to use it, and most of the things that an abled person relies on are just not accessible to you. And so like watching a zombie movie is just like, no matter what, all the characters are basically disabled, like, and then they're also like having to worry about like safety, and I think that there's, that it feels relatable also maybe as like female presenting person. Like there's a lot of like ways in which I feel like you kind of can see yourself as a oppressed person. So that's why I like zombie movies.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Dead Snow is one you should check out. It's great. It's a Norwegian zombie film, but it's about a group of friends who go to this cabin, as most horror movies start,
Right,
and they're attacked by zombies, but they are frozen Nazi zombies. It's fantastic.
Nazi zombies,
It's
wow.
fantastic. I was actually having a terrifically bad day, and my friend was like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get drunk, and then we're going to watch Dead Snow. And it was the best.
Oh god, I love a good Nazi zombie.
It's great. It's so good.
That sounds
it's
fun.
so good. Yeah, it's wonderful. My favorite horror movies though are probably anything that has to deal with cults. Like my all-time tip-top favorite horror movie that I have willingly gone back to watch again and again and again is Midsommar.
Oh, and it came out recently.
Yes, and I went back to the theater to see the director's cut.
Oh,
of that
wow.
movie.
It's
I
about a cult. I
love
don't
it.
actually know what it's about.
Oh my god, it's so good. We should totally watch it. It's so fucking good. It's like, it takes place within a cult, but the director poses it more as a relationship film. It's a breakup story. Basically, it's about a relationship that is rotting from the inside out. But
Between two people?
Between two people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But going to this cult kind of lays everything bare.
Oh.
And it's just, it's so good. I love the setting. I love the acting. I love all of the tradition behind the cult. It's so well researched. It's just, I don't know. It's visually, it's amazing. It just hits all of my
Pleasure points.
I love it. And now, granted, his first movie, Hereditary, Midsommar is terrifying. It is scary, but it's not like the jump scare, like I'm going to grab you. Hereditary is the first film he made, and although I think Hereditary is really good, Hereditary was terrifying, and I still haven't gone back to watch Hereditary again.
So I don't know the plot of Hereditary
Oh,
either,
right,
but
okay.
how, does it have anything to do with disability? The name makes it sound like it does, but I don't know.
It's more about, well, actually, Hereditary involves a cult again. Actually, Hereditary is more about evil being passed down through a family. It's hard to talk about it without completely spoiling everything.
Okay.
But it's also good. It's also really good. I think I've just found Hereditary a little bit more unsettling.
Well, because that also has a weird disability connotation, because there's a lot of conditions that get passed down through genetics.
Yes.
So
Well, and unfortunately, the one trip up that I really can't excuse Midsommar for is the cult. So the cult has this special book called the Ruby Router that all of their rules and everything is written down in, and the way they get the keeper of the book basically is the cult will inbreed every now and again, and they will have a disabled child, and the disabled child is very developmentally disabled, and the child is seen as the clearest thinker and the keeper of the book, because his mind is unclouded because he is disabled.
yeah.
It is a really backwards look on disability. I don't enjoy that, and I'm like, you have this perfect film, but then you want to include that, and I'm just like,
Well, that's the annoying thing, is when you watch things that you like and then a disabled character is introduced and you're like, no, I like this, don't do this, because you just
right.
assume it's gonna be bad.
Exactly.
It's just you don't, and it's very depressing.
It plays into the whole super strong disabled person, but their mind is the mind of a child, and they don't know their own strength, and they have no idea. So there's that.
What is the book that you have to read?
Mice of Men.
Thanks. Yes.
Of Mice and Men. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, and obviously because I still say Midsommar is my favorite horror movie ever, that bit of it is there, but it's another whole, I really love this thing, but I can still think critically about this thing, but I still really love this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's hard, and I guess this is kind of, now we're talking about a lot of different horror movies. I mean, we did talk about freak shows as an idea in The Man Who Laughs, so talked a little bit about that already this month, but like and I think that I think what we're talking about is relevant.
Yeah, I really hope there is a resurgence though with the concern with this movie. There's still a little bit of me that holds on to hope that maybe someday the half an hour of lost footage will be discovered and this movie will be made whole, and it will be.
That's how film you're bringing your internet bias into this. Like things do just disappear forever. It does happen.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, because either the film is destroyed or an accident happens or it's retaped over like BBC. That's why we don't have a lot of the classic Doctor Who, is because they just reused their tapes and they taped over a bunch of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. It's that might be a thing of the past.
But there's a lot of stuff like there's this old black and white movie called Greed, and it had been like recut and re-edited and reshuffled and da-da-da-da. And the original print and cut of the movie, it doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. Cut to someone in Argentina comes upon a bunch of old movies, and one of those old movies is this unaltered cut of Greed.
Oh, wow.
So we have it now. It exists.
Well, I guess they probably distributed it to like a few different places, but they did cut it right very quickly, I think. So it was released with the shortened version.
I'm pretty sure this is a half an hour of footage that is lost to the annals of time. But
yeah. I mean, but yeah, I think that like I'm like forward looking too. I wonder if we are going to have other things that have the same spirit of like actually watching people with real disabilities, like real people with real disabilities doing like, existing in a community. Part of me also wondered like how many of these people with these like very like silent eugenicism of our culture, of like the ways in which, because of medicine, sees disabled people as being wrong, that like you like do screening for like certain conditions so that like moms will have abortions if fetus has certain undesirable disabilities that are deemed like just bad enough that you can't like live with them, even ones where you can still live a life.
That's the question. That's like the $1 million question,
right? Like it just and thinking that, and I was like thinking about looking into this more, but I was like, this would be both hard and just so deeply disturbing to like look into too deeply. But like part of me, a big part of me watching it was just like, I hope that there's still people who get to live these lives now, because that's my biggest fear, is that we're just more and more trying to make it so that there's less and less people who live in this world like that. And like it's really, really hard. Like it's just that part of it is, I think, the most horror. The most horror of all is like silent eugenics.
and the fact that if a physically disabled person, if they want to be an actor, if they want to be in movies or anything, the only thing that they might have available to them is sideshow character number 3.
Right.
I want to see these folks in quote unquote normal roles.
Yeah, I also want to see them in normal roles in the world as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
I think that's part of the problem, is it's like you're trying to replicate the real world. Like I think, especially compared to like the era that this movie's from, like film has become more and more about like, the realism. Like if something takes place in the real world, there's more of an attention to realism. Obviously, there's also like, things that are more fantasy or whatever that are different, but I think like the making things seem realer is a movement we've gone to in a lot of media. But the problem is, if we have such an ableist society that truly we have just snatched out all the disabled people from the experience people have, then you have this double whammy of like, first of all, most people don't get to interact with disabled people on a regular basis because we're so like
few and far between.
Yeah, we're like forced to not exist in the world, like in against our will. Like we can't work, and we have so much less options, and so many, we're so invisible in the in the grand scheme of things. And then on top of that, you have Hollywood trying to imitate, you know, the existence of the creators or whatever, and so they're not interacting with disabled people, and then, you know, so disabled people are not, that's why they would only get freak show parts, because there's a sense that, like, well, they don't exist anymore, and part of it is because in some ways they don't exist anymore, you know, because there are, on top of that, you do have eugenics, and so there are less people who, like, just numbers wise, who have certain, like, conditions, and so you have, like, just all these things where it feels like, which is what the very depressing thing that, like, what it, like, it almost makes sideshows feel like that was the golden era of like being disabled, which, I mean, like, oh god, I hope that's not true, but, you know, but sometimes in, like, a darker moment, it does kind of, it can feel that way, like it's like, when else are you gonna have, like, a vibrant community of disabled people who are very, you know, like, have very visible disabilities, who aren't being, like, you know, hidden away in the dark corners of,
but know. I guess my argument to that is, okay, so you have your community of disabled folks who work at a sideshow.
Yeah.
Great. So they do their show, they make their money, da-da-da. This community wants to, I don't know, go to a bar and have a drink, or go to a restaurant and eat a meal, or go do whatever. And they're still ostracized. They're
right.
either kicked out. Now, granted, I'm saying, like, what if we're still in 1932 and they do this or something. I would hope that it's better today, but I don't.
Sometimes it's not that you're kicked out, you're just not as able to, you know, sometimes it's literal infrastructure problems. You can't get in certain places, and there's also barriers to, like, you know, where you can work, where you can participate in things, like, I
mean, so yeah, it's this glorious community, this wonderful little thing that they share, but it's just, it's not society. You're usually the one that sounds more pessimistic. I get to play that role today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that, like, I'm not nostalgic for sideshows really at all. I think that, like, it's more of a I mean, yeah, ideally you could have a community of people be a home base, and, like, I mean, I think about the queer community and the disabled community in very similar ways, like, you know, and being a member of both, I feel like there is a lot of similarities in just the way that we could, you know, have chosen communities of disabled people as you do with queer people, but at the same time, like, you want to be fighting for the ability to still exist within the world. And there's always that push and pull, I think, that all oppressed groups have to deal with, of, like, how much do we want to just assimilate, and how much do we want to, like, you know, celebrate our differences and lean into them in a way that's, you know, might be more, you know, make it harder potentially to, I mean, I guess assimilate really, but it might make it harder to really get that. I mean, I don't know. It makes it, I don't want to say anything that makes it sound like respectability politics, but yeah. Like, I think that sometimes also there are people in oppressed groups that assimilation in a certain context is what they want, you know, because in some cases, like, people just, like, that they want the same thing that an able person does in a certain situation, which is, like, kind of assimilation, but, like,
yeah, I mean, you should have that right.
You should be able to just have the same things able people have, and it's like you should have the choice to, like, forced assimilation is what makes assimilation bad, is, like, the fact that people are being told, like, we know that you want to be who you are, but we're not going to let you.
like the Borg, basically.
Wait, which?
Oh God, sorry, Star Trek reference.
Okay.
So the Borg is this collective of aliens. They're a hive mind, basically. But they're where we get the phrase "resistance is futile."
Oh, okay.
So the Borg are a hive mind, and when you are a Borg, part of the Borg, you are not yourself. You are part of one thing. You are a Borg. You're part of the collective.
So it's kind of like what is it called? Pando? Is that sounds wrong? The trees, all the trees, and also the internet.
Yeah, but each tree is its own individual tree. This is literally
What is
you and me are we sitting across from each other at this table, but if we were the Borg, we are not we're the same person. We're the same mind. Basically.
Right. Well, that is like Pando. I think that's what it is. It's just like a giant living organism.
Cool.
But yeah. What were you comparing the Borg to? Now I can't remember.
What you were saying about how about assimilating.
Yeah.
Forced assimilation.
I see. Yes.
So that's the Borg. You are forced to assimilate. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice to be what you want or do what you want.
Right.
You're gonna do this whether you like it or not.
Yeah, and it would be like if something was kind of forced into the Borg that didn't want to be there also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's, assimilation is only okay when it's a choice someone makes on an individual level and not like, and forced assimilation is historically horrible.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I knew that this movie would spark a lot of really interesting discussion, and that's why I picked it.
Though we should say at this point in the podcast, there technically isn't really an outwardly blind character at all.
No, and I didn't necessarily know that for sure, 100% sure going in.
Yeah, one of the characters is blind in real life, but it's not really talked about at all. But it is a lot of disabled actors, and I think that it's, there are a lot farther from what we talk about. I mean, there's movies we watched that were probably far less about things we talk about on this podcast that did have blind characters, so we did talk about them legitimately, but they had a lot less about disability in them. So
I mean, I'm still really glad we watched this, and this is definitely something I would recommend to friends, and not recommend I wouldn't recommend it for a Friday night Halloween scary spooky fest, or I really want you to sit down and watch this movie, and I don't want you to watch it because it's for sensational reasons. I want you to watch these people.
Yeah.
The ending is still really chilling, actually. But
if at any time you're like, oh, disgusting, check yourself and think about like, I think like also not to like be guilty about it, but like I think it's important to just like note it and interrogate that, and like you can have empathy for yourself, but also like have empathy for yourself while saying like this is not something you want to keep doing, like how can you make this more something that you feel comfortable with it?
For the first 10 minutes I felt bad because I was like, I'm a voyeur, I'm just watching these people, I'm just staring at these people. But then you really get to know all the characters, and I didn't feel like a voyeur anymore. I was on this journey with them.
But I
cared.
think also, like, I think staring at people is, in real life is bad. I mean, I'm also like, I don't, I think vision's so relative, obviously, that like the idea of staring at people is very difficult to like even fully comprehend to me, because I'm like, I could stare at someone and literally just have absolutely no idea what they look like, and I could be completely not looking at someone and actually getting a sense of what they look like. So it feels very irrelevant in some ways, but I do think that just like being able to watch people is not a bad thing, and I think that like, I mean, I don't know, I use movies to see people that I couldn't see in the real world, because I'm not going to ever be, I mean, really just anyone on TV is going to be, on the TV that I have, I can see their faces better than very close friends of mine. And so like, I do think that there's nothing wrong with using media to be like a way of understanding people in like a safe, just a very safe space, because there's, and I think it's not like God is not looking, I mean, I guess, what you believe, but I think there is, like we do in this culture, of a sense that like God, like literally God is looking down on us and judging us for what we're thinking, which is like,
why would you watch that movie? God is watching you, that movie is bad,
right? And like, why are you thinking this? Because God can, and I mean, like, I know that this seems very silly, but I do think that's where it comes from, because there's no logical sense of like, it's your thoughts. It's like truly really not affecting anyone. And if anything, having those thoughts is a really healthy thing to, like, you know, have the thoughts, notice the thoughts you're having, think about those thoughts and what you, if you want to continue to have them or if they're unhelpful, you know, like, and all that's like being able to use all the cognitive power of your brain to, like, you know, think through things. Like, that's a great thing about, you know, having a brain, so why not do it? But yeah, anyway, it's kind of a detour, but I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, really the voyeuristic aspects of it, and I think that if anything, that just makes you more feel like now, you know, makes your brain, like, you kind of feel more like, oh, I know these people, like, and that's what I also really liked about it, is I just felt like I got to hang out with them for a little bit, and so yeah, I see a lot of value in that, and I wish I could do more of that. I wish there was more media like that, because I think that would just be, it's just kind of nice. It's is it parasocial relationships? Like how you have, like, TV characters, I don't know if that's the right word, but, like, that it can be, like, psychologically healthy to, like, have, you know, if you're in a place where you feel kind of isolated, like sometimes watching TV, like getting to have relationships with the characters in a TV show can be, like, really beneficial to, like, feeling, like, socially supported. I know, like, when I was very isolated for a long time, like, listening to podcasts, like, actually really psychologically was helpful for me, and, like, made it so that I then went out and found more friends, because I felt like, you know, my brain just kind of was like, yeah, people talk to you all the time, like, you're always, like, around people talking to you, and that, like, gave me a lot more confidence, and then I had real friends, and so it, like, was overall a net positive. So I do think that, like, watching people that are not the people that you get to, like, interact with in your daily life on TV in a movie has a really beneficial factor, as long as they're not, like, super bad portrayals and, like, offensive. You know, you want it to be as close to reality as possible, but, like, yeah, anyway, that's my rant.
Well, I'm not sure we can give this movie a blindness acuity rating.
Oh yeah, we're not set up for a different kind of rating system.
I know. I just realized that. I was like, oh wow, this really, yeah, okay.
Just on a scale of 1 to 10, how freaky was this movie?
Oh man, how freaky. Well, gosh, probably a 6 or a 7. I'd say. Yeah. I suppose the easiest question is it a good movie? Yes, I think it's a really good movie. Would watch again, or would definitely recommend to friends to check it out.
Yeah, I think I like most of it. I don't think you really needed to end that way.
No, the ending is a bit.
You also just don't even need the Cleopatra character at all. I think that was the least interesting part of the movie. Like, just doesn't feel necessary at all. Mm-hmm. Like, disabled people know able people suck. Like, we don't need a movie to tell us that. But
able people with bad intentions suck.
Yeah, or like, yeah, the people there's people who suck who are abled and behave the way Cleopatra behaves, I guess would be the most specific way to say it. But yeah. I think overall it was really fun to watch the different, getting to watch all the actors in the movie. I definitely made me sad that that's not more of Hollywood.
Older movies, especially ones from the 20s and 30s, are kind of amazing because it is a moving time capsule.
Yeah, well, and also, like, the pre-code era movies are the best because they're watched 3 pre-code movies and they have, like, they're fucked up, and, like, they have all been, like better at representing disability than movies we watch from, like, the 2010s, like, on this podcast, which is, like, truly depressing, but, like, also why pre-code is way better than post-code.
Yeah.
Old movies.
But yeah, I picked this because I've always wanted to watch it. It's been on my bucket list for the longest time. It's October. I thought, oh, what a coincidence. What a couldn't be a better time to watch something like this.
What did they say? We accept her.
We accept her. Right. One of us, we accept her.
We accept her. We accept her.
We accept her. We accept her. Gooba gobble, gooba gobble.
One of us.
Yeah.
Yep. just an incantation at the end of the podcast. Yeah, do we want, I mean, is there any other freak stuff?
Yeah, I mean, go watch it. Go watch it. It's on YouTube.
It's an hour long. It's like literally a TV show episode.
It is just it's the length of it. It's the length of a TV show episode. You're fine. You're fine. And
there are like HBO shows that are longer an episode than this whole movie.
Yeah, and you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, it's cool. So we have next week is our final horror movie.
Spooky movies.
Yeah. It's very exciting. We'll see if this is a great finale or not because I haven't seen it. But next week, the movie that we're doing is The Beyond.
Oh, cool.
It is from the early 80s, 1981. And I believe, I mean, it is an Italian movie that I saw. I looked at the trailer and it was like dubbed, so I don't know if we're going to be able to find a dub or not. I don't, but like, it may be in Italian or it might be dubbed. We'll find out. But it is, we have a blind character with the fifth sense to know where evil is, and there's a hotel on the Hellmouth and stuff, so it'll be fun.
Oh yeah, this does sound like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it seems like it's probably more gory than some of the other ones we've watched, but I mean, it's a good grand finale. Maybe we'll see.
I like it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm down.
So to infinity and the beyond.
Perfect.
I have a pun for each one of these.
Well, so my blind aside is I always try and read during the month of October. I always try and read a scary book or something spooky or different. I always say like I'm gonna read something by Stephen King, and then I never do. But this past week I read the book Spontaneous.
Okay.
Because I had heard there was a movie version of this book, and I had heard about the movie version before I heard about the book. So I said, oh, cool, I can't access the movie version right now, so I'll just read the book. So this book is basically the main character is Mara. She's a high school senior, and it's about a class of high school seniors in Covington, New Jersey. And one day, all of a sudden during class, one of the kids blows up.
Oh my god!
Just
spontaneous combustion.
Well, spontaneous combustion is fire. This is an explosion.
Oh.
So spontaneous something.
Explosion.
Explosion, yeah. And there's just gore everywhere. And the book is basically what the fallout of that situation is, because more kids start spontaneously blowing up. Yeah. It's very much of its time. I don't think the book is very old. I think it was written a year or 2 years ago. And the movie itself right now has got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I really want to check out the movie version. But I thought the book was a really enjoyable read. It definitely makes you think about a lot of things that are affecting teenagers, especially high schoolers in our culture. It's written, it feels very modern, but not too modern. It feels like the book is cool and hip, and without having to be like Diablo Cody.
Nice.
Without having to have like Diablo Cody dialogue, basically.
That's good. Yeah.
I don't have anything against Diablo Cody, but you know,
yeah,
you don't talk that way. Yeah.
No,
anyway.
Hamburger phones.
Come on, I love the hamburger phone. Anyway, the book is Spontaneous, and it was a really good read. It's a super fast read. It only took me. I finished it in a day. I listened to it in a day actually. Yeah, because the audiobook is only 9 hours, I think 8 or 9 hours, so it goes by very fast. But yeah, it will make you think. I don't want to say a lot about it because I don't want to give major spoilers away, but
we've spoiled enough on this podcast.
I know, we spoil so much. But yeah, Spontaneous the book, and then if you like the book, go check out the movie, because the trailer is pretty great.
Nice. And maybe that'll be one of yours in the future.
I hope so.
The movie.
Yeah.
Just they'll all be spontaneous from now on. It'll be the most predictable spontaneity ever. Okay, so my thing this week is a TV show. How to Get Away with Murder, which I have just started watching. I'm on season 2 right now. It's a Shonda Rhimes show. It's actually my first Shonda Rhimes show. So Viola Davis is the main character, who's like a law professor who's has like a group of law students who she is a defense attorney as opposed to the DA or anything, so it's like kind of underdog in our political system as a defense attorney. But the show is just them literally, it's literally just about them getting away with murder. You know, it's one of those where they just describe the main plot. But they use kind of like, it's funny, I was making fun of all the shows where people accidentally kill someone and then have to cover it up, but at least in this one they like know law, so because I just hate the ones where they're just like they don't understand how the law works, and so they keep just like killing other people, and it's like, no, stop, which I mean I guess kind of happens in the show too, but at least they know the law, so it's kind of fun watching people get away with it. But yeah, it's so if you like how watching people getting away with murder, this is a good show. And you know, it's Shonda Rhimes. It has like, it is very, some of it is very over the top in a way that's like, okay, we're taking a little bit of, you know, artistic license here, but it's not complete. It's not like very ignorant of, you know, how all the ways that the criminal justice system is fucked up. Even though sometimes it goes to places where I'm like, okay, that's kind of not exactly, I feel like that's a little bit off of what's real, but a lot of times they'll do stuff that you know, it's kind of like it's fun to watch stuff where they're the underdog of people getting fucked over by the criminal justice system are fighting back.
Well, welcome to Shondaland.
I know. Yes, thank you.
I entered Shondaland through Grey's Anatomy.
Oh,
actually.
yeah, I think that's a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I know I'm not unique. But a lot of people really like Scandal. I haven't gotten into that one yet, but a lot of people like Scandal. I don't
Sensation. Maybe I'll go deeper into Shondaland.
Shondaland.
Shondaland always seems like a place, maybe because it sounds like Disneyland. It always feels like a place you could do in a day for some reason, to me, just the name.
Yeah, but there's way more sex in Shondaland than there is in Disneyland.
I do enjoy that. I'd rather there be more sex. So it still is, How to Get Away with Murder is still like network show, which I always get very annoyed. The sex scenes
gets away with a lot, though.
Sort of, but it's like the way my eyes work, they just like go, like the cutting is so, it's like a fight sequence, and I'm like, come on, I just like, makes me miss HBO, but whatever. Anyway, so that's our, they're kind of, we had two kind of Halloween-y
there you
thanks
go.
Yeah. So good. We did a good job.
We did good.
We did this. Yes. Okay. And hey, our podcast is only 20 minutes longer than the movie.
Go us.
Yeah. I did watch a video that was like talking about the different actors and stuff, and it was longer than the movie.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god. That's amazing. Yeah, I know. I want to do some more research on this too.
That's great. Do it after we record the episode, Melissa. No, I'm just kidding. Our theme song is by Lucia Fasano. Our YouTube is Citizen White Cane Podcast, where you can turn on closed caption to get the transcriptions of each episode. Our Twitter is White Cane Pod. Our Facebook and our Instagram are both Citizen White Cane, and our email is citizenwhitecanepod@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voice message, are you a freak?
I think that's it. I don't have anything else.
Okay, so only if you're a freak.
Are you a freak? Call us.
Yeah, and you can find the link in the show notes to that. And come back next week, where we will be maybe not above, but we will be the beyond.
Perfect.
We'll see you then. Bye.
Da-da.